Hello everybody, it is Wednesday and we are looking at punctuation amongst other things today. I'm a bit earlier today, apologies for that. I have got a busy day. We are looking at punctuation amongst other things today. I'm a bit earlier today,
Turn this
apologies for
off.
that. I have got a busy day. We are looking at punctuation amongst other things today. I'm a bit earlier today. There we are. That should be it. Right, okay, so we have been looking at sentence structure. We have looked at length of sentences, we've looked at repetition, we've looked at listing, and now we are going to just finish that off and look at the idea of a writer's use of the tool of climax and what it means when he uses it and why he uses it, he or she, of course. Okay, so items are placed in a specific order in a sentence with the most important last. That's what a climactic sentence means, okay? So it can either be the most important last or the biggest last or the most serious last. It depends what the sentence is about. What's the subject of the sentence? What is happening? Is it getting bigger? Is it getting more serious? Is it getting whatever? Let's look at this one here. And this is the one that we looked at yesterday. So fast food is now served at restaurants and drive-thrus, at stadiums, airports, zoos, high schools, elementary schools and universities, on cruise ships, trains and airplanes, at Kmart's, Walmart's, and even at hospital cafeterias. So that sentence, the list is climaxing with the idea of hospital cafeterias being the most shocking place for fast food to be served. So it's a climax, okay? So why? What is the subject? So the subject here is where fast food is now served. By listing them, the writer is focusing on, and there's that phrase again, the number and variety of places where fast food is available. The sentence finishes with a climax as it finishes with the most shocking. Okay, can you see that? Come back to the subject. It's really important. Now, the opposite of that is anticlimax, building up to an event that doesn't happen. In a list, the least important comes last and often for comic effect. So you're looking at a list and you're thinking, what's happening at the end? What's happening? Is it climax? Is it a climax or an anticlimax? Here's an example of anticlimax. In moments of crisis, I size up the situation in a flash, set my teeth, contract my muscles, take a firm grip on myself, and without a term, always do the wrong thing. That's the wrong word. Without, what should that be? I always do the wrong thing. I'll delete that there. For some reason, I can't do that there. I think it's because it's in full things. And without, let's change it. I don't like that. Without fail, always do the wrong thing. Now, we would expect, let me just take that away. Right, that's better. Anticlimax, we're built up. I size out the situation in a flash. I set my teeth, contract my muscles. We're being built up. We're dropped. We fall. Our expectations aren't met. That's an anticlimax. It's the opposite of a climactic sentence. Okay, another thing to look out for in a sentence structure is antithesis. And this is when a writer places opposites together in order to create a contrast, therefore making the point that he's making or she's making memorable, or perhaps to lend a greater insight into the subject. And it's also very stylistically pleasing. Antithesis is a clever way to write. It's a clever tool to use. You're easy on the eyes, hard on the heart. So we've got the easy and the hard, the opposite there, making it as understand what the writer is saying there in a nice stylistically nice way. Okay, so you're lovely to look at, but you're hard work, okay, or you're a heartbreaker or whatever. Okay, so that is us looked at these. Last thing is rhetorical questions. Now, lots and lots of students write that the writer has used a rhetorical question to draw the reader in, and you get no marks for that, because you've got to say what the subject is. What is it he's trying to get you to do? The word rhetoric means the art of using language effectively. A rhetorical question is a device used by writers to introduce an argument or a point. As it does not have an answer following it, it encourages the reader to think about the argument and perhaps persuading them to agree with the writer. But you've got to see what the argument is. Okay, so they're easy. You just, what's the subject? What's he doing? And also, again, that phrase, stylistically pleasing, it's a nice way to write rather than making a statement. And we are going to go on now and look at punctuation. So let me just click on this. We're going to look at something different here. Okay, so I would like to just quickly look at the sentence here. The transaction seemed to fluster her, as if she might not have enough money to pay for the few things she'd bought: a tin of lentil soup, an individual chicken pie, one solitary tomato. Maybe she did need the avocados or something else. How does the writer emphasize that the woman had bought few things through the use of sentence structure? Okay, so imagine that was in the passage. Well, this is easy, because what we need to do is our first job. We talked about this. Let me just, I'm going to be try and be brave here and use my, no, how did I do that? Yeah, I'm going to use my whiteboard. Not that that's particularly brave, but you know what I'm saying? Here. Yeah. And then we'll do this. Okay. Okay, so the first thing we do is we do a forward slash, don't we, at the end of the sentence. So I'm going to change the color there. I'm going to make it there. And I'm going to put, why is that doing that? Chicken pie. Okay. I don't know why that's not playing there like that. I don't know. Annoying. So annoying. Let me just change it there. Give up. There. Right. Maybe this will work. Right. Forget that. Okay, we'll come back to the piece of paper. The sorry. Okay, so we put a forward slash after she'd bought here a tin of lentil soup, there, a chicken pie, there, that there, and that there. And we immediately see lots of short sentences, don't we? Okay, and so we're going to circle the punctuation now. We circle that. We circle that, full stop. We circle that, full stop. We circle that, full stop. So, and one dash. So there's not much going on in the field of punctuation, but lots of full stops. Gosh, a lot of short sentences. So let's look a bit more closely. A tin of lentil soup, an individual chicken pie, one solitary tomato. Oh my goodness. We know that a sentence has to have a subject and a verb. What is the verb in a tin of lentil soup? Well, there isn't one. An individual chicken pie. What's the verb? There isn't one. One solitary tomato. There is no verb. Okay, so what have we got here? Well, the writer has used a succession of what we would call non-sentences. This is not a sentence at all. It's a non-sentence. Now, did the writer do this because she doesn't know how to use punctuation? Well, of course, we know the answer to that is no, not at all. The writer has done this for effect. And here we've got what the effect that she wants in the words of the question. She had bought few things. Okay, so the writer uses a list of non-sentences. Okay, a tin of lentil soup, an individual chicken pie, a solitary tomato, and instead of using a list, she separates the clauses, the phrases out, the list, the items in the list with a full stop, emphasizing how few things she has bought, because they're just they're separated off into sentences, non-sentences, rather than in a list, drawing her eye to the few things that she bought. And it says here, she might not have enough money, so we know how she's feeling flustered, etc. Okay, you're looking closely at the context. And here there's a list, albeit a list of short sentences or non-sentences, but there's no climax and there's no anticlimax in it. There's just a list of things that she bought. Okay. Punctuation. Now, punctuation is one of these things that I'm sorry to say you're just going to have to learn. If you don't know what to say about punctuation by this point doing English, then it's time you learned. And not only will this help you in your National 5 exam, this will help you going forward for the rest of your life. And it'll help you greatly in your essays for all your other subjects. You should know how to use punctuation properly. You should know why writers use punctuation when they do. And if you don't know, then learn it. Okay, so pay attention to this. Now, look at this wee bit here. An English professor wrote the words, "A woman without her man is nothing," on the chalkboard and asked his students to punctuate it correctly. All of the males in the class wrote, "A woman, comma, without her man, comma, is nothing." All the females in the class wrote, "A woman, colon, without her man is nothing." Aha! So punctuation is very powerful indeed. It changes the meaning of sentences altogether, and we've got to get to grips with it and use it properly and know how to use it. So you can't write about sentence structure without knowing how punctuation works. So here is a short glossary of punctuation that you need to know about. And I'm only going to do 2 today. Well, I'm going to do 3. I'm going to do the inverted comma, the colon, and the semicolon. So we'll start with those. Okay, an inverted commas are used to highlight the spoken word. So when somebody speaks. "Did you intend for this to happen?" asked the Prime Minister. The words that the Prime Minister speaks are put into inverted commas. The question and then the inverted commas around them. Okay. The other occasion that we use it is to identify quotations. The Cabinet Minister responded immediately by saying, "It was not my intention and I'm extremely sorry for the outcome." Those are the words that he said. That quote is put into inverted commas. And then if we jump down to the bottom here, to identify the title of a film or a novel, The Matrix, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, we put that into inverted commas too. But here is the slightly trickier one. Writers put words in inverted commas where they don't necessarily, sometimes it's when they use foreign words, or when the author does not necessarily agree with the text, agree with what he is writing. So an example would be, the Cabinet Minister gave an immediate response. A so-called immediate response. Actually, it wasn't immediate, it was late, or it was immediate, but it wasn't effective, or he hadn't thought about it. It's usually loaded with an opinion or a tone of the writers. Okay, and the way that I get students to respond to that is to say a so-called. If you're writing an answer to that, put a so-called immediate response, because the author does not agree with what he's written. Okay, slightly trickier, and we'll come across it here in examples. Okay, to introduce a quotation, we use a colon. So a colon is the two dots, one above the other. To introduce a quotation, we put 2 dots. To introduce a list, 2 dots. To introduce an explanation on a point, so one point made in this part of the sentence, colon, explanation afterwards. What exactly did you mean? Comes after it. Or to expand the detail on a previous statement. The previous statement is in the first part of the sentence, and what comes after the colon is an expansion on that. Okay, so those 2 points are quite similar, aren't they? So it's either an explanation or an expansion. So have a look at what's going on. And again, as with everything else, you have got to explain the subject in the first part of the sentence, what's going on in the first part of the sentence, and then there's the colon and what comes after it. And I don't want just the content, but put it into your own words, and what is the writer expanding or explaining on. Okay, and then a semicolon is used to separate items within a list, or used to separate 2 linked statements, or used to separate 2 opposing statements. So a semicolon is the dot and then the comma. Separate items within a list, and they're not just items within a list, they're usually kind of slightly more detailed items rather than just a normal comma. 2 linked statements, so that statement, the first part of the sentence, links with the second part of the statement, and the writer separates them off with the semicolon, or 2 opposing statements. So you must look and see what's going on in the sentence. Now let me find you an example here. Yeah. Let's look at the inverted commas round. The driver opened the back door of the taxi, and my aunt, as we referred to her, dash, really my mother's aunt's daughter, dash, divested herself of the travelling rugs. What is the function of the dashes? Right, we're not going to do that because we've not done dashes. And why does the word aunt have commas around it? The word aunt has commas around it because it's so-called aunt. She's not the proper aunt. We're told later in parenthesis, in between a pair of dashes, but that's tomorrow, what the relationship is. Really my mother's aunt's daughter. Okay. Okay, look at this bit here. Jamie Miller walked in, dash, the new boy in the year, dash, and sat next to Jason Black. He was really fit. This was a disaster, dash. Jason was the biggest geek in the whole school. He looked a sight, colon, his orange curly hair, his big thick glasses, his snotty crusty nose. They were never going to get on. So let's look at that colon there. Well, we know that colons introduce a quotation, introduce a list, an explanation on a point, or expand on a previous statement. It's introducing a list, isn't it? There, it's a list. And we've got the items in the list separated because they're more detailed. They're more detailed, and so they're separated with a semicolon. Okay. I've not got another good example to hand. I'll put another good example in the underneath the comments. But for tomorrow, I think if you do not know how to use punctuation, and if any of you are going on to do higher English, you absolutely have to know this. Write these out and learn them. Okay, so we've only done the 1, 2, 3 inverted commas, colon, and semicolon today. Tomorrow we'll come and we'll look at parenthesis, single dash, and ellipsis, and then we'll do lots and lots of practice of that tomorrow. Okay, I will put a definition. I might put a wee sentence in for you for tomorrow, or we'll just crack on. I'll see you tomorrow anyway. Cheers.